Hi, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. Glad you could join us. Ron Futrell coming up in hour number 2, as well as newly hired UNLV assistant coach Kevin Kruger coming up next hour. So that'll be a lot of fun. Speaking of basketball, I do have some breaking news. A lot of people around the basketball community are shocked on this one. Magic Johnson has just recently stepped down from the LA Lakers. And a lot of people are saying that, he wasn't able to fully commit to the job. Adrian Wojnarowski, who's a pretty good NBA insider, said he was often traveling and away from the team. His office hours were limited. Shocker. Magic Johnson stepping down. I wonder how much of LeBron James had to do with this. Maybe just Magic didn't want to deal with LeBron, or maybe just he didn't want to put in the hours that needed, to be the president of the Lakers. I don't know, but it is a little bit of a shocker. So we will talk more about this in the coming days for sure. No doubt about it. Magic Johnson stepping down from the Lakers. And, of course, Jamison Welsh from Drive Time Sports, who's our hoops guru, will be in tomorrow, as well as Dennis Silvers, the golf guru, to talk a little Masters, preview the Masters as well. So does this name ring a bell to you? His name is Dr. Dow. That name ring a bell? Well, this was the guy a few years ago that got pulled off of a United Airlines. I believe it was United, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe it was American. I don't know. One of those airlines. And he was pulled off of the flight before it took off, obviously. They didn't just throw him out midair. They didn't do that. But it looked pretty brutal, and it was pretty bad. So Dr. Dow hasn't said anything in the last couple of years. He got a big settlement. I'm talking huge settlement. Some people said $5 million. Some people said $10 million. Don't know exactly how much money he made. Let's just put it this way. It was 7 figures, and he made a lot of money. And what did he get? Well, he got a bloody nose, if you recall. So Dow did his first interview in a couple years. I believe it was on Good Morning America. I'm going to play a little tidbit of what he had to say. Here's Dr. Dow.
It was the horrifying viral moment seen around the world.
Oh, my God.
2 years ago, Dr. David Dow, forcibly removed from an oversold United Airlines flight by aviation security officers after refusing to give up his seat to make room for United employees.
No, I'm not going.
Today, Dow speaking publicly about the incident for the first time.
Have you watched the video?
Later on,
What's that like to watch?
I just cried.
You can hear you screaming in pain.
I don't know, I just cried.
Do you remember how quickly things escalated?
I think very fast. I think very quick.
Were you expecting it to get physical at any point?
No, not at all.
How did you handle all of that attention?
Get the point I have to hiding.
Could you go to work? Could you leave the
can't.
house?
No. I stay for months in the house.
So there you go. There's Dr. Dow. Hopefully you can understand it. It's kind of hard to understand. He doesn't speak great English. Probably better than me, though. But so he said he cried a lot. I have absolutely and positively no sympathy for this man. First of all, he could use his Benjamins for tears instead of tissues, okay? The guy is loaded. Somebody please give me a bloody nose, kick me in the groin, do whatever you want. For 7 figures, I will take that, number one. Number two, the guy was asked to leave the plane. Do you remember this? They didn't just show up and just forcefully remove him, okay? He was asked nicely by the staff. They asked him. They said, look, this is our policy. And by the way, that was their policy, that in specific situations, there might be a spot where they offer you $500 or a different flight, and they say that you had to leave. Well, it turns out that nobody wanted to do it, and they just randomly pick people. And no, I don't think they picked this guy because he was Asian. I think that's complete nonsense. He was randomly picked. You have to leave the plane. When somebody comes up to you and somebody says, sir, you have to leave the plane, you got to go. And he refused to leave. So what are they supposed to do in that situation? They already randomly pick somebody. They say you have to go. You refuse to leave. You act like a moron. Yes, I thought Dr. Dow acted like a moron. He tries to call United Airlines while they're in the middle of telling him, sir, you have to go, and he refuses to leave the plane. So what happens when you refuse to leave the plane? Similar to when you refuse to, answer to commands from a police officer. It's probably going to get physical, and it's probably not going to end well for you. Now, I think what these security guards should have done is they should have probably called the police. I think that was their mistake. Instead of getting physical with somebody, Probably should have called the police, right? Let the police handle it. Let the police come in there with the handcuffs and the taser. If the guy's really not willing to leave, you can tase him as far as I'm concerned because you're an idiot. I think Dr. Dow is a moron. Yes, I do. And nobody criticized this guy. For years, I never heard anybody criticize this guy, Dr. Dow. He got a huge severance. He hires an attorney, and he got boatloads of money, and now he's retired. For doing what? For refusing to leave an airplane. That's why I have a problem with all these frivolous lawsuits, right? We talk about the Covington kids. That kid and his family, was it tough on them for a week? Were there some reports out there in the media that were false? Sure, absolutely. Did they get some death threats? Luckily, nobody executed that. But was it a stressful time for a week or so? Absolutely. Does that mean they deserve $250 million? I know people. I have a friend of mine who's an attorney in this town who told me she's had clients, she's represented clients, and she's a great attorney. She's represented clients that have lost their limbs, lost their legs from a drunk driver, and they struggled to get the guy $5,000. $5,000 hit by a drunk driver. Your life has changed forever. You're in a wheelchair. You're telling me Dr. Dow deserves 7 figures? You're telling me that these Covington kids or this family deserves 7 figures, $250 million? They're not going to get that. What are we doing as a society? What are we doing here? You want to pay this guy, Dr. Dow, $100,000, $50,000. You want to give him free airplane tickets for you and your family the rest of your life? Fine. I wouldn't have a problem with that. But this guy got paid. It was ridiculous. Where is the accountability in our society? Where is it? You want to talk about the Covington case and the accountability with the media? Give me a flying break. It was an inconvenience and stressful for the family for a week. Their life is back to normal now. Stop it. Stop it with they're going to struggle. Their lawyer said that he's going to struggle with that and his kids are going to struggle with it. His grandkids are going to struggle for the rest of their life. Are you kidding me? People have already forgotten about this. Stop it. Now, what do you guys think about this Dr. Dow situation? Am I wrong here? If you're in an airplane and you're asked to leave and that is their policy and you didn't read their policies and they tell you you have to go, then guess what? You have to go. You have to get up and you have to leave that plane. That is the law. Now, I understand United, admitted that they were at fault and it would never happen again because it was a PR nightmare for them. That's why. It was terrible. There was a ton of pressure on that airline to come up with an apology. And by the way, the CEO of United at first said that the employees acted appropriately. Then after the backlash came out, then they apologized and they played the game in the courtroom and they didn't want it to drag out. And they paid this guy off a lot of money. What do you guys think about that? Am I wrong on this one? I think Dr. Dow was at fault if anybody was at fault. I'll open up the phone lines, 257-5396. Again, that number to call is 257-5396. When somebody tells you to get off a plane, you get off a plane. You don't argue with them. You don't say you're not going anywhere because only bad things can happen. It's just like when a police officer tells you to put your hands up, and then what are you going to say to the police officer? I didn't do anything wrong, officer. I'm not putting my hands up, and you don't comply. When you don't comply with people that are in authority, this is what happens. Bad things happen, and I'm tired of it. The number to call, 257-5396. Again, 257-5396. That's my thoughts on this situation with Dr. Dow. I have zero sympathy. None. Zero. He was paid off big time, and I just don't agree with it. Let's go to Marge. Marge, thanks for calling in. Marge, how are you?
I'm great today, thank you.
What's up? What's on your mind?
This happened in my favorite city, Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
Since I hail from there. And the Chicago police were called, by the way. They were the ones that actually dragged him off.
They did. Okay.
Yeah.
Then okay, I'm glad you corrected me on that one. The police officers have the right to do that as far as I know.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yep.
And there were 4 passengers, I think, that were identified as getting off the plane.
Right.
So he was just one of 4. He wasn't, singled out as the only one.
Right.
What's also interesting about his past is he was also convicted.
Right, he's a criminal.
Of some drug deals, and I really think he
lost his license, Marge, right? Didn't he? He lost his medical license, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yeah.
Then they reinstituted, and now I think he can only practice like 1 day a week or something like that.
Yeah.
But I clearly think this is a guy sitting there thinking, I'm going to calculate this one out.
Right, exactly.
And if I cause a big ruckus over this whole thing, I mean, the pictures are horrific at the time when he didn't really know what was going on. I remember seeing all of that.
Right.
But given his shady past, shall we say,
mm-hmm.
But, I travel, and, Yeah, I mean, you're at the mercy of the airlines. If they change the schedule, if they change wherever, your plane is sitting within the airport, you go there. You do exactly what you're told. I mean, they're in charge of your lives, basically, until you get off the plane again.
Of course. It's disgusting to me, Marge, and I know that they didn't announce how much money he got, but we can all agree it was seven figures. It was a boatload of money. The guy's retired, and to me, he's just a complete idiot. He's an idiot for not complying, just like anyone who doesn't comply with a police officer. If you don't comply, then you're an idiot and you deserve to get what is coming to you. You do what an officer tells you to do, especially if it's Chicago PD on an airplane. What did he think? That they were just going to say, oh, okay, no problem, sir. You can just sit there and stay. We'll just pick somebody else. And now he gets paid boatloads of money. And Marge, let me ask you this. All these big companies like United, why do they succumb to this? Well, we all know why, right? They don't want it to drag out. It's a PR nightmare.
Oh, yeah.
But I tell you what, I would respect them more if they did fight it in court.
Yeah. And, the other thing is that if they went on to someone else, I can just imagine what would happen in that cabin.
Yeah.
Oh, he got special treatment, so now it's you type of thing. And United had several incidents later on. I mean, they've had nothing but problems with their own reputation.
Right, of course.
And that kind of it just cascaded after that. But this one was just brutal for them.
Yeah, I would love to know. Good points, Marge, and I appreciate the call. Good to hear from you. I would love to know how much money he got. We know it was a boatload of money. I'm sure he's, everyone's talking about how charitable he is, how many great things he's done in his life. Yeah, I'd like to know how much money he donated to charity from the boatloads of cash that he got. Yeah, I'd love to know that. 257-5396, 702-257-5396. Let's go to Louis. Louis, thanks for calling in. How are you?
Pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you about frivolous lawsuits, but what are you going to do? There's nothing you can do. He who hires the best attorney wins, and that's just how it is.
Doesn't make it right, though.
Until you have been through litigation, nobody understands. Nobody understands. I agree with you 100%, but you know what? He hired a good attorney. United Airlines didn't want to drag it out.
See, that's their mistake, Louis. That's where I think they made the mistake. As far as I know, they followed protocol. And what do you do, Louis? You tell me, Louis.
That's beside the point. Louis' fine, but that's beside the point. At this point is, unless you have been through litigation, nobody wants to drag it out. Have you ever been through litigation?
I understand what you're saying. Luckily, I haven't. I understand your point, Louis. I understand. I'm sorry I screwed up your name there, Louis. I apologize.
No, Louis, it's fine.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
Louis, I understand your point. I totally get what you're saying. They didn't want to drag it out. I agree with you. I'm just saying I think they made a mistake because I think it sets a bad precedence, and this sort of stuff happens all the time. It's almost like you're saying, because there's a lot of people out there that make a living off of lawsuits, right? Falls in supermarkets, so on and so forth, with insurance and all that stuff.
Starting with the McDonald's coffee.
I remember that. Wasn't it like an 80-year-old lady that spilled hot coffee on her lap or something, right? I mean, that happened years ago, but I remember that. There has to be accountability with people, right? And the problem is, you can just file a lawsuit against somebody, and then forget about a big company. It could just be any regular person. They can't afford an attorney, so they just come up with something that works, and he just pays somebody off. I just don't agree with it. I think United Airlines made a mistake, and I think this guy, Dr. Dow, who is a criminal, by the way, the last caller called in, is absolutely right. He lost his medical license. He's just not a good guy, and he's just not, and he's irresponsible, and I think he was calculated.
And you know what? That may be true. But you know what? We're a nation of laws, and the laws afford everybody the same rights.
It does, but what about accountability? What do you do if you're on an airline, you work for an airline, and you're on a plane, and your policy says, well, you have to randomly choose people and people will not leave their seats. What do you do in that situation?
I understand, but you know what? This is why where we are at the divide in this country, because people are mixing in accountability with the law. You don't have to be accountable to follow the law, and vice versa. And I totally get what you're saying. And the dude may be a bad guy, but the law afforded him this, and he had the money to go hire an attorney. That's fine.
It's the problem with our justice system. I call it the injustice system.
But what are you going to do? It is what it is. It's just like when they say, oh, there's systemic racism. Look at all the black people. No, the black people that can't afford an attorney, that rely on a public defender, they're the ones that end up wrongfully imprisoned. Why? Because they don't have the money provide themselves.
Well, that's why I call it the injustice system. I agree.
No, but everybody has the same opportunity to hire an attorney. If you can't afford, it's right there in the Constitution.
But not everybody has the financial means, like you said, to hire a good attorney.
I understand that, but that's no one is entitled to that. And that's where I think a lot of people are conflating everything. Everybody thinks that they're entitled to everything, that the rich people aren't any different than you. No, they're not, but they are. They've got more money than you, period, end of story.
Well, all I'm saying is
it's going to be different.
I understand, but I understand what you're saying, but I don't think that makes it right, Lewis. And your point is well taken. By the way, the number to call, 257-5396, 257-5396. Just because you have money, that should not mean, in a perfect world, it should not mean that you have a better chance of getting away with something than someone that doesn't have money. O.J. Simpson is a perfect example of that. Is there really anybody out there that truly believes in their heart that O.J. Simpson is not a murderer? The evidence was overwhelming, and I understand that Mark Furman and the LAPD, they totally screwed up that case. I get that. Marcia Clark and Paul Darden did not do a good job. They made a lot of mistakes, but with that being said, the evidence was overwhelming. O.J. should have been in jail for the rest of his life, but he was a celebrity. He had money, and he was African American, but he had a lot of money, and he probably still does, hiding somewhere. But that's a perfect example of why I call it the injustice system. If you have money, look at Jussie Smollett. That's a perfect example. That's another example. Jussie Smollett, an African-American gay man who clearly staged this whole thing, and 16 charges are dropped. It is corruption at the highest level. If that's just any ordinary person, I don't care what the color of your skin is, you would be probably thrown in jail. Look at all the money he cost Chicago police and all the investigators, and all the charges are dropped. And now the prosecutor is talking about how people are going after her. She's corrupt. She's playing the race card now. And she's talking about how people are after her because she's African American. Speaking in front of people along with Jesse Jackson, the racist himself. It is nonsense. And I go back to Dr. Dow. Yes, he is a man with money. And yes, it was a viral video. And it looked really bad if you didn't look through everything and look up the case. The man was calculated. Our caller Marge just said that. She's absolutely right. He was calculated. He sat there. He refused to move. He never got up. He was causing a ruckus. And you know what? If I'm on that plane, I say, hey, idiot, get off the plane. They're telling you to leave. Get the hell off. You're holding up the flight. I would have been pissed. I would have been angry. And I would have been glad that those officers, did what they did. I would have clapped because he was a Nimrod. And then you have some of the people on the plane, oh, my God, what are you doing to him? Oh, geez. Well, man, would you like to sit there for 5 hours and wait until he leaves the plane? And now this guy is a multimillionaire. He's got boatloads of money for being a jackass. There's something wrong with society when stuff like that happens. And if I saw that guy say, you are an embarrassment to society, that is what I would say to him. You are an embarrassment. Go away. It's a disgrace. All right, so we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, new UNLV assistant coach. This is really cool. Lon Kruger's son, Kevin Kruger, who's been an assistant coach over there in Oklahoma, he just got hired today. It's exciting. New UNLV assistant coach Kevin Kruger will be joining us next, so look forward to talking to him. Also, Ron Futrell coming up at the bottom of the hour. Live from Las Vegas Ballpark. It's opening day for the Las Vegas Aviators. We'll get to him as well, but Kevin Kruger coming up next, so that'll be a lot of fun. Looking forward to this. You're listening to The Vegas Take on the all-new 101.5 FM, 720 AM KDWN.